Um, One thing also Dr. Olina talked to you about was the anti-intellectual ism that you faced. A lot of times, people were like, "Why do you study? Why are you going to school so much?" How did you overcome that? And do you think Pentecostals are still anti-intellectual, or do you think we've come a far way?
Uh, well, there was a lot of anti-intellectualism, but especially uh, about going to godless universities,
Mm.
and I remember uh, after I received the baptism in the Holy Spirit, I there were people there in the assembly there in Oakland that said, "Oh, you ought to quit that godless University of California and go to Bible school somewhere."
Mm.
And I struggled over that because I felt that the Lord had opened the door for me to come there to the university, and He'd taken care of me up to that point. And I remember getting down before the Lord and finally saying to the Lord, "Well, now, if you want me to stick it out at the university, I will."
Mm.
And it was like uh, a warm feeling went from the top of my head down to my toes. And so I took that as a confirmation that that's what the Lord wanted me to do.
Mm.
And then when the Lord called me, spoke to me with an audible voice to go back to school and prepare to teach in Bible school, I had people who said I was crazy to leave science because I had been thinking of going back to get a higher degree in science, and uh, and yet my pastor encouraged me, and then the Lord brought different people to help me at each point. Uh, that is, the president of the Southern California Bible College, which is now Vanguard University, happened to be in Sacramento uh, right at that time. So I asked him about going down there to study the Bible, and he said, "Well, now you already have a university degree, and our Bible colleges are going to need uh, people with higher degrees for the sake of their accreditation. So why don't you find a seminary to go to?"
Mm.
And I think he was the only person in the Assemblies of God that would have said that to me at that time. and and then I wrote around to a lot of seminaries, and Dallas Seminary sounded good. And I filled out the application, was about to sign it, and felt a definite check in my spirit.
Mm.
I prayed again, felt a strong check, so I just put the application back in my desk drawer and worked another year in the chemistry lab.
Mm.
And during that year, there was a Baptist evangelist that came to Sacramento to hold a campaign. And his name was Harry Anderson. And he came around to our young people's meeting and invited us to visit his evangelistic campaign. He said he'd like to have Pentecostal young people visit his evangelistic campaigns because it seemed to add something. And I think he was the only Baptist evangelist who would have ever done that. But by getting acquainted with him, he told me about Gordon, which is now Gordon Conwell, which was in Back Bay of Boston at that time, clear across the country. I'd never heard of it before.
Mm.
And the Lord led me to go there. And it just seemed like the Lord had the right person at the right critical times all the way along. The same way after I graduated and got my Master of Theology from Harvard, I started to, well, they were reopening the Metropolitan Bible Institute in New Jersey, North Bergen, New Jersey, and my uncle Wesley Stalberg encouraged me to come down there and start to teach there. They needed me there,
Mm.
well, they were only going to pay me $50 a month plus room and board for me and my wife. And I told my professor at Harvard what I was going to do. He said, "You don't have to suffer that way. We can get a good job for you." But I felt that that's the Lord wanted me to do that, and then after 3 years there, Brother Riggs, who was one of the assistant superintendents of the assemblies at that time, he encouraged me to come to Central Bible College, and later on, after 30 years at Central Bible College, my Brother Zimmerman, the general superintendent of the assemblies, encouraged me to come and teach at the seminary. So I had 13 years there too.
So all along the way, there was people who were encouraging you
Yes.
to continue,
and people that encouraged me to go overseas, and so I had wonderful opportunities teaching overseas in about 20-25 different countries, and just several times in the Philippines and several times in India, several times in Brussels, Belgium, and then in Moscow, Russia, and several other places. I also had a great time spending 4 months in the Holy Land doing teaching and archaeological digging there. And I remember one of the things that impressed me there was that we found a Canaanite tomb that had it was a clan burial, so that it had several layers of burials, and every burial had a food jar and an oil jar and an oil lamp. And I remember that Dr. Pfeiffer, one of my professors there at Harvard, had said that one of the reasons he didn't believe Moses wrote the Pentateuch was because it mentioned a sevenfold lamp. And in his opinion, everything was always his opinion, in his opinion, Moses' day was too early for sevenfold lamps. I think he thought there must have been an evolution in lamps. But here, this tomb was from before the time of Moses, back in the 1400s, 1500s. And I watched them uncover a sevenfold lamp there, coming from before the time of Moses. So that kind of tickled me.
Yeah.
And just had so many wonderful, interesting times, and everywhere I went, where I've taught. In fact, I celebrated my 91st birthday teaching in Singapore, in our Bible college there, and everywhere where I've gone to teach and around the world, I've found young people who are on fire for God. God is doing great work.
Yeah.
It's, in fact, people here in America don't really realize how much has been done in Africa and China and although one of the outstanding things in this last General Council was the pastor of the First Assembly of God in Baghdad, Iraq. He's an Iraqi person, and he had started a underground church and was thrown into prison, liberated by the Americans when they took over. And then he started in his home, and now he has a congregation of over 1,000 people meeting every Sunday, and they're in Baghdad.
Right.
Now you don't hear that on the liberal media.
Right. He's growing. He's an incredible guy. Yeah. All right. Well, this is going to finish part 2 here, and then we're going to continue on for next week's in our final segment. So here we go.